local people, important issues. CBS 10 WILM's weekly focus on the Lower Cape Fear region. This is Byline Wilmington with your host, Don Ansell.
Well, one of the biggest events in the entire Southeast region is the North Carolina Azalea Festival. It started in 1948 and has grown into a 5-day celebration that attracts crowds in the hundreds of thousands. Our first guest for this special edition of Byline is this year's Azalea Festival President Hank Estep, and in the second segment you'll meet Gayle Ward, who is chair of the Azalea Garden Tour this year. But first, Hank Estep, Mr. President, welcome to Byline. Thanks for
Thanks for having me.
Making time for us. So just a few days and counting now?
Just, it would be a week yesterday, and it's getting close.
Yeah.
All the activities ramp up.
So what's the ride been like for you?
Well, you know, I've been doing this for 10 years.
I've been
on the board for 6 years.
But you've been.
But as president, you really, what happens is after the festival, you kind of don't really want to talk about it for your prior year, and then basically what you want to do is you start planning, and the ride is like a roller coaster.
And you really start planning. I mean, it all starts to unfold, you know, in the spring. But you've been planning.
Yeah, you plan. You really, it's a year-round process, and you really start planning in May, and it kicks up.
How did you originally get involved in the festival?
One of the presidents, Lisa Ballantyne, picked up the phone one day and said, "Hank, I want you to manage the porta-johns throughout the entire festival." And I said, "Okay." And it started from there.
It started from there. And that was what, 10 years ago?
That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But did you, once you got involved, just say, one day I'll step up?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I did.
There's a process.
Yeah, there's a process, and you get infatuated with it, and you want to move up, but it's always looked like a crazy fire drill every time we get involved with things. So over time, you know, you kind of get enamored with that process.
All right, let's get festivals. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
And I was with Blue Cross, and I moved around, and they asked me to come down here in '95, and I've been here ever since.
Were you you moved around?
Yeah, I grew up in Richmond and bounced around in Virginia for a couple of years, and
were you glad? Did you immediately take to Wilmington?
Well, I thought this would be a 2 or 3 year stop because I was in the corporate world at that time, and we were expected to move around. And after about 3 months here, I said, I'm not moving. So
really?
I figured out a way. Yes.
And you have a big family.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Get this.
Obviously married, and I've got 5 kids. They range from the age of 19 down to 12, and it's all active.
And actually, I spoke to your wife at a little gathering, Azalea Festival gathering. I want to have your wife on to talk about what it's like to mother 5 children. Yeah, to parent 5 children.
Yeah, it's she should really be sitting here as opposed to me. That's for sure.
So, what's the learning curve been like? You spent years on the board and you keep moving up. So did you pretty much have it down, or is it like still?
No, you never really have it 100% down. But that's okay, because there are committee members that have been involved, and I know you'll have Gayle Ward here soon, but there are committee members that have been involved for 30+ years. And that length of involvement basically takes a lot of the burden off us. And those folks can, they know what they're doing. A lot of these things are run automatically.
With a lot of manpower.
With a lot of
man hours. How many people would you say are connected to the festival?
Well, that's a good question. We've asked Woody Hall, UNCW, and Steve Meinhold to update the economic impact study. We're estimating around 1,400 volunteers that get involved, and that's really what makes the festival great. Is because the number of volunteers that we have, it's a grassroots effort. It's not something that one entity's putting on. The community's putting it on.
So you booked 2 major acts for this year's concerts. Mm-hmm. How do you decide, how does that process unfold? How do you decide?
Well, what we do during the summer, before the festival, we start talking to one of our booking agents, and they give us ideas, and we come up with ideas, and we go back and forth. And we kind of have to rely on a lot of our booking agent.
Of course, availability is one issue.
Well, we look at availability.
Right.
We look at
price.
Price, obviously, because we're the festival. We can't charge $100 a ticket.
Right.
So, and we people don't realize this, but we barely break even on these concerts.
All right. So this year, you're starting out with Wednesday. That's an unusual day. It's usually it's more often been Thursday, Friday.
Well, we have the coronation of the Queen Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock at River Park, and that's kind of the tradition where we kick everything off. That night is where we'll have Darius Rucker. We'll have the Darius Rucker concert starting at 8 o'clock at Trask Coliseum.
And before we get back to Darius Rucker, Friday you got the Avett Brothers.
Friday we have the Avett Brothers, and that sold out within 10 days.
How unusual. I think Bob Hope maybe and Frank Sinatra, but I can't think of another group that have ever in that quick a time.
I can't figure it out either. It's they'll say concerts and bands. They'll have a mile wide appeal, but an inch deep. This is an inch wide, but a mile deep.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And when our booking agent said, "Hey, you got to look at the Avett Brothers," I was like, "We can't pick them. I mean, no one knows who they are."
Go figure, right?
Yeah, and then 3 months later, we're signing a contract, we're crossing our fingers, boom, sold out.
Lightning strikes.
Yeah.
And of course, Darius Rucker, one of the founders, Hootie and the Blowfish. How tickets?
We are probably about 300 tickets left.
Wow.
Out of almost 4,000.
So
that's probably going to end up selling
that's
out.
Going to. So that's a pretty good foundation for kicking off the festival.
Oh,
it's two sold out concerts.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
So you took a bold step also in booking a Sunday afternoon major event, the Azalea Festival Tennis Challenge, John McEnroe versus Todd Martin. How did that come about? Whose idea was that?
That came to us by default. The Greater Wilmington Tennis Association wanted to have a tennis event, and the time they could have it happened to be during the festival. So they called us up and said, "Hey, can we borrow Trask Coliseum? We know you have it booked all week. We just need it one night that you're not using it." And I said, "No way, no way, we're not doing that." And then after a couple meetings, we said, "Why don't we take this and turn it into one of our events and help you guys out?" Because they're raising all the money for the Althea Gibson Tennis Center. It's a benevolent event. We're trying to do, all the proceeds that we're getting from this are being turned over to the Althea Gibson Tennis Center. So we're trying to do this to help them, and it gives us an added marketing mystique, so to speak, another event, and it's to help everybody out.
And tickets for that are how are they doing?
We probably have sold a little over 3,000.
So you got another like 1,000.
We probably have another 1,000 or so to go, but it's Sunday afternoon of the festival. But what happens is what we find out with a lot of these new events, a lot of the sales they'll actually start ramping up over the next 3 or 4 days.
And you have a tall ship coming to downtown to kick off the
tall ship will come down, I believe, Thursday afternoon. Yeah. The Lynx, and
122 foot.
122 foot looks much like the Peacemaker from last year.
Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, you've got all the related events that you always have. You have Cole Brothers Circus, you have the parade, you have the street fair. Do you know how many events you got with all the affiliated events and the Azalea Festival events this year?
There's got to be at least 20-some events associated. You'll have something, people don't realize this, we have something called the Juried Art Show, which is down at St. James Episcopal. And it's, although not highly touted, it's a very neat,
and it has a following.
Yeah, it has a following.
And the coin show has a following.
The coin show has a following at the Armory. The horse show. All these events that come up. And some of these events are actually what we call associated events. They come to us and say, we want to be a part of the festival, and we tell them, go ahead and operate it, just tell us what you're doing. And
you have the multicultural stage.
The multicultural stage.
At Bailey Park in the downtown, at the downtown street fair. Of course, the garden tour, we're going to talk to the chair in just a few minutes, Gayle Ward.
Yeah, and the garden tour is actually the crown jewel. That's what started this whole festival.
Really? I didn't know
Well,
that.
I mean, that's really, 64 years ago, Dr. Houston Moore wanted to celebrate the fact that the beauty of the azaleas around Greenfield Lake.
Let's talk about picking a queen. That's a big decision. Who does that?
Everybody. Gayle Ward, who we have on next, actually did that for a while. We all get involved. We ask the community. We ask people. There's lots of folks in the community that have contacts. And this year, Sandy Cyphers, I asked her, would you go? We wanted to recognize the military this year. And this year's queen has a lot of military background. And what she does is to help the military out. And I think
former Miss America, Heather French Henry.
Heather French Henry, former Miss America 2000. Her father was a disabled vet, and she spends all her passion is to help the vets, disabled and homeless vets throughout the nation.
So, do you, before you sign on the dotted line, do you talk to her? Do you interview her? Do somebody say?
Oh yes, yes.
You do personally.
Either I will or.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, I didn't actually make her the offer, but once she agreed to do that, we spent time talking to her because she has some, you know, each queen, we allow them to do things that the other celebrities don't. We give them more talking time and all that. And we want to make sure
they're the face of the festival in a way.
They're the face of the festival.
Yeah.
Yeah. Better face than mine. So I'm just glad she's here.
Grand Marshal this year?
Grand Marshal, Major General Bob Dickerson. Two-star general.
That's of the parade, the Grand
That's
Marshal
of the parade, and he's coming out of, he retired from Camp Lejeune a couple years ago, but he actually ran the Marine Corps bases on the East Coast. He's the real deal. He's a man's man, and I'm just glad he's here.
And you always have a lot of visiting guest celebrities. You got Leanne Hunley from Dawson's Creek. She's an Emmy Award winner 1986 for Days of Our Lives. Any other names you can
Well, one thing we wanted to do was I wanted to get some local flavor here. I know, and it's because we don't pay the celebrities. It's hard to go out to LA and say, hey, we want, you know, Jacqueline Smith, and then pay her. We can't do that. So what we want to do is get some local celebrities that have made it big. And this year we've got Connor Barth. He's an NFL place kicker, Hogger graduate, UNC graduate. And he's an NFL star, so he's coming back. Really wants to be here. Cynthia Cooper-Dyke, she's a UNCW women's basketball coach.
And has just set the court on fire this year and really turned that team around.
CAA
she's
women's
a
coach of the year.
superstar, yeah.
Big deal. It's a big deal to have her. I don't know how many people know this. She's a gold medalist.
Oh yeah.
In the Olympics, bronze medalist in the Olympics. I think she just was either getting inducted to the Naismith Hall of Fame. She is big time.
We're going to take a short break. You'll stay with us, and when we come back, stay with us. Gayle Ward, who is chair of this year's Azalea Garden Tour and has spent many years with the festival, will be joining us. Stay with us.